You got it.
You can hear me. No, I don't think so. Wow, there we go.
All right, welcome to our special work session. It's May 31st of 2022. We welcome those who are in attendance with us tonight and their smiley faces.
Wow, there we go.
We welcome three of our department heads.
John's told me to mute YouTube Chrome window, so that's what I'm working.
Okay, we'll continue to work on getting sound for those who have joined us electronically. But with that, we'll start this evening.
John told me to mute YouTube Chrome window, so that's what I'm working.
Okay, we'll continue to work on getting sound for those who have joined us electronically.
Might be it.
I think that's
Okay,
it.
that's good. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start this evening. I'll ask Councilmember Severing to give us a thought, an invocation, and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Severing.
Yes, thank you. Heavenly Father, we assemble this night. We're grateful for circumstances that allow us to do so, the liberties that we have. Grateful for the Constitution, grateful for the opportunity to have the freedoms that we enjoy. We pray that tonight that decisions rendered would be appropriate for the best of the city and the citizens. We give thanks for the moisture that we've received and pray that we might be able to receive what we need in the upcoming summer for the upcoming year as well. Give thanks for the abundance. We're mindful of those in the city who might be struggling physically or emotionally, those who might be dealing with feelings of mourning. May they be buoyed up by thy spirit. We give thanks again and pray for this tonight in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you repeat after me. I
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Severing, I'd like to excuse Ryan Barker this evening from our meeting. He's with his family celebrating their son's graduation, so I'd like to excuse him. And you probably noticed John Call's not with us tonight. He's on electronically with us. John has just returned a little getaway. He's not feeling well, so he's joined us. And hopefully we'll be wrapped up by 8 this evening. Councilmember Swanson has another commitment. And we surely want to get through the item on the agenda tonight, as this falls right in line with his responsibilities of finance. So we appreciate your attendance this evening. We do have a special meeting signed agenda. It was attached to the meeting. I think it was signed by myself and 2 other council members. So I think we're legal tonight. At this point in time, I'd like to call for any conflict of interest regarding the issue to be discussed this evening. Are there any conflicts? I see none. So at this point in time, I would entertain a discussion or a motion to approve the April 12th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes.
I just have one minor thing.
Councilmember Dalpaz.
On page 5 in the meeting minutes, it's in section 6A. In the second paragraph down towards the bottom of the paragraph, I believe it should say was full-time instead of as full-time. If you look at it, you'll know what I'm talking about, but that's my correction.
Susan, is that adequate for you to make?
So when you say, so I'm on page 5, is it in the finance section or is it?
One of the page 5s, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm on.
6A. So
Where's it down here?
was full-time instead of as.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Susan, I give you adequate information to make the change. Are there any other suggested changes in the minutes before I seek a motion? I don't see any, so I would be looking for a motion to approve the April 12th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Is that a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Ekstrom. We have a second to that motion.
I second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Severing. Is there any further discussion on those minutes? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the April 12th City Council meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We'll now move into the active agenda. We'll seek public comments from those who would like to make any comments this evening, either here in person or online. Susan, are you able to see who's online, or is John?
No, it's me.
Okay, would you let us know? Raises their hand. And if you'd like to make a comment, please keep your comments to 5 minutes. State your name and if you're a resident of North Ogden. Anyone, Susan? Okay, I don't see anyone here, so we'll now move on to item number 5, which is the primary purpose for our meeting tonight. Mr. Caller, City Manager and Attorney, will be leading a discussion with the help of Jamie, I'm sure, on the budget for the public safety building and other capital projects. I think the council recognizes the desire to have full disclosure on where we're at on the building, where we're at now and how it will be funded, and the necessary means to do so. So that was the purpose of the meeting tonight. It's to make sure we're transparent in this very critical decision in our city. So, Mr. Call, if you would like to proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that Jamie will be leading a good majority of this discussion. As many of you know, the bids have come back from our subcontractors through Big D. higher than originally anticipated last fall, which means that in order to complete the project, the city needs to identify additional funds, either through existing revenues that we have on hand or finding new revenues through what we would suggest, or I would suggest, in the form of additional bond to cover the additional expenses. It seems to be pretty standard across the industry. For sometime in the past 6 to 8 months, prices have continued to go up about 30%. The market is softening a little bit, but every indication is that softening won't result in a reduced fee or a reduced cost to the building. So I think the council needs to take a chance to talk about the project, talk about your feelings on the need for it, or the maybe concerns you have with the increased costs, and then help Jamie and I understand what direction you'd like to go moving forward. Jamie, I know, prepared a slideshow for this tonight so that she can provide information about the different options for existing revenue sources or existing fund balances. And that's kind of the direction of the discussion. Do you have any questions for me, council?
Councilmember Swanson.
John, just so that everybody's aware, public and council, what is the amount of increased dollars that we need in order to complete the building at this point without any further increases?
So the cost from the contractor is $12.4 million. And that does not include the cost for some of the utility work for Rocky Mountain Power and the house that we bought. So we are anticipating the cost to be close to $14 million.
Okay, and so the amount more that we need, so that everybody knows the number that we're trying to work towards as we talk about internal funds versus, isn't it something like 1.8?
I think that's a good question. Maybe John could give us a little history on where we were, where we thought
Sure.
we were, and then
Sure.
where we're at now, and that would give us the difference of how we're going to come up with. And
Sounds great.
Maybe a review just historically for the council and for the public of what was approved bond-wise, cost-wise, and then maybe that'll fill in the blank for us. So good question. So John,
Okay.
maybe you could do that just to refresh everyone's memory.
Yeah. So originally, we had planned on a total cost of the project after we received our bids of roughly $11 million. At that point, the council made the decision to bond for $6,750,000, and then to self-fund the other $4.25 million. And that was with the base cost, again, from the contractor of $9.6 million, and then about roughly 1.4 for the city to buy the house and do some of these extra things, as well as have a little cushion. So we're roughly looking at an increase of $3 million total. We had some other unexpected things. The soils study came back a little worse than we wanted it to. It ironically is just barely the wrong side of it's a liquefaction coefficient. It's just barely not strong enough for liquefaction, so we'll have to do what are called geopiers to provide a little extra stability for the building in the event of an earthquake. This building is being constructed as I believe it's called a Class 4 facility, meaning it should withstand an earthquake or most earthquakes and remain functional. So it's not just that it won't fall down, it's that there would be not significant damage so that the facility could continue to operate. It will include things like generators and stuff like that. But essentially the cost increase, based on what we had originally anticipated, has been about $3 million.
John, just to make sure that I understand, that $14 million includes a contingency fund of about $650,000, is that correct?
Yes.
So if we could build it, which is highly unlikely without using any of that, we'd come in at what, 13,350,000?
Correct.
But with, I think as Councilmember Swanson has pointed out, materials just continue to escalate. Just don't know exactly where those will end up. So I think it's wise we built in that contingency, but I just wanted the council to know in that $14 million price is a contingency of $650,000. I wish it was a $6 million contingency.
Yeah.
Councilmember Swanson, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
So 3 million is the number
Overall,
we have to come up with, either with internal funds or additional borrowings, if that makes sense. Council, does that clarify anything for you? All right, John, continue on.
And so Jamie has done a lot of work and rework as we've asked her to find sources for those for those funds. And so we really, at this point, council, I think, are ready to have a discussion with you on what is your preference for the source of those funds, and what our next steps are will be based a lot on what your decision is related to that. So Jamie has some slides to show you the funds we have available in our existing balances, as well as information on bond costs and other things if we chose that path. So it's probably good, Jamie, to hand the torch off to you for now.
Okay. You want me to start with how we got there, or are you okay with this slide here?
Let's start with the slide and see what questions the council may have.
With this one?
Yeah, I think let's go ahead and start with this one.
All right, so hopefully y'all received this afternoon. I didn't get any questions back, but so far right now, as of today, we're projecting $7.4 million for cash on hand. Plus we have our first bond of that 6.7 million that John talked about. And basically this slide just shows the different bond amounts that are available still under the current bond parameters that we have available. The first 10.5 million that we did. So we can go up to the 3.75 if we're comfortable with that. But really what this boils down to is what kind of projects we want to fund in the next year, or the next two. I think that's really the burning question. So if we go with just with what we have on hand, we have roughly $14 million. And that does include a fund balance reserve of $1 million. But that empties out the fund. And so the question is if the council is comfortable with bonding for more or doing less projects.
Amy, when you say it clears out the fund, just as a reminder, the council approved some parameters to try to leave $1 million in the capital improvements fund for unknown opportunities that may come along. So I believe that amount on the bottom of 1,190,000 would be what's left over if we bond for another 1.5 million. Is that correct?
1.5 million, yes.
And as you go along, you can see that ranges from the 1,190,000 and barring an additional 1.5 million to 3,270,000 if we maxed out at the additional 3,750,000. I would point out that one of the things that's not in here is the fact that we do have a commitment for $1 million for the park down at Patriot Point, which would come out of the fund. We don't know exactly when that's gonna happen, so I think that's why it's not on here. But we do have that commitment. So with that being the case, if we put that in, we'd have 190,000 left in the capital projects fund. And it could be well over $1 million with costs that are been accelerating. So I just wanted to point that out. And also, I think you made a comment, Jamie, that this includes monies that may come in through 2023.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, so if the perfect storm happens that we are planned on budgeting, this is where we're at. If it doesn't come in the way that we're planning, then it's just that much less.
How's your crystal ball?
He's been using John's.
A late volley, he hasn't had it yet.
So this would entail, having excess revenues over expenditures in 2023 of about 500,000. And we know we've got to make some adjustments in the budget to get there.
Also includes the projected overage for fiscal year 22, and we still have 3 months left of including that.
And I think this includes the proceeds from the sale of this property that Mr. Child is
Yeah, we
anticipating.
can go back if you want to go back to that first slide.
If the council would like to see what the conditional things are. Bill?
Just one quick question on this slide here, Jamie, the 3-4 items that are
Deferred.
deferred. Lowman View, Trailhead, Barker Park, those are things that we'd push off a year, correct?
Yes, they're not included in fiscal year 23.
Which, Phil, I believe, so are they included in the building of the fund balance through 2023, or you subtracted those?
Nope, they're not in there.
So those wouldn't be in there either, which would reduce the
Further reduces.
500,000 that's included in here, so.
Paints a picture, right?
It does. Did you want to go back, council, and see some of the things that she's included in there that actually haven't happened yet, or are you clear on those?
I just have one question about these
Some
numbers.
downtimes.
On the very top line where it says additional estimated bond payment, it's either 107,000 annually, 160 or 267 annually. And that is above and beyond the approximate 400,000-ish that we had before, right?
Correct.
Okay,
And that's built in.
Yes, that is.
Those payments are built into the fund balance at the end.
Those come out of general fund, and so they don't affect capital projects fund.
okay,
And the rate on the bond, I think originally was a little bit under 2%. The new bond would probably be around 3-ish, 3.25, depending on what happens rate wise.
Our window is closing on the bond. I believe we have until the end of June. Otherwise, we would have to start over the bond council.
Council, would you like her to go back and show you some of the things that are built in that we're anticipating that haven't happened, so you can assess the risk of maybe those things happening?
Right, so at the beginning of July 21, we did have 6.1 million of beginning balance. We did receive grant revenue. We have received this. We haven't received the sale of the properties. Again, the 500,000 for projected sales for the sales tax overage. We are at 560 right now, but we do have some budget amendments coming up. The 486, which is a budgeted transfer above and beyond the 500,000 of the sales tax overage. 350 of the parks impact fee for fiscal year 22. So this is paying back the capital improvements fund. About 320 of transportation impact fee fund, and this is to go towards the road. The 400 East project, and then also same thing for the transportation sales tax fund, that's to go for the 400 East project as well. So we have approximately 10,000,006 in total funds before expenditures for fiscal year 22. Go to the next.
Could you just back up just for a second? So we're pretty confident that the projected sales tax overage for fiscal year 2021-22 is high probability with what we're seeing now. So if you look at that, we anticipate this year that we'll have excess revenues over expenditures basically of 986,000, the 500 plus the 486. The sale of this property, we could let John kind of chime in on that, what he thinks. I think there's a closing date on that. The parks impact fee, we know that's a done deal. The 320 and the 200 are also done deal. So really here, the higher risk would be the sale of this property next door.
Sure.
That's the property over here.
John, do you want to tell the council what the status of that is?
So every indication looks like the buyer is planning on moving forward with closing on July 1st or before July 1st of 2022. The only question now is the exact square footage they're going to purchase. The site plan has a couple different options, and I anticipate we'll bring that back to the council for the council to review in the coming weeks, just to make sure that we're doing exactly what the council's asked for. But the proceeds from that likely will be somewhere around $600,000, and we get 500 of that, and the 100 roughly would go back to WACOG as additional revenues over what they had authorized us to repay ourselves with.
Thank you, John. And Jamie, could I just clarify, this is not touching the minimum 15% of the general fund.
Correct.
That we also have that sitting there, not what the council suggested. Okay, want to go to 2023?
Yeah. For revenues.
Yeah, what we're banking on, or to get
So
to
you can go, so you can skip this one. This one's the expenditures. So at the beginning of July 1st, coming up, we're anticipating a 6.6 million. Again, with the budgeted transfer of 500,000 from the general fund, anticipated 350,000 from the parks impact fee, again, paying back the fund in fiscal year 23, and then possibly a new public safety impact fee, maybe beginning July or maybe August, and we're anticipating maybe about $75,000 there that could go towards public safety building. So that's how we come up with the 7.525 for total available funds in fiscal year 23.
I think we know to get the 500,000 budget transfer from the general fund, we still have some adjustments to make in the budget.
Yes.
But just as a reminder, that does not include, just for clarification, the deferred items you saw on the previous slide, which, you know, I think we need to make sure we're not kicking things down the road on some of those things. John, could you update the council on the potential of deferring that 300,000 on the parking lot over here?
Yes, so I spoke with Linda Wainsgard, the library director, and she indicated she didn't see a major issue with our request, but it hasn't been approved by the board yet. Her and I exchanged some emails today and some information, and she is getting ready to present that to the board here in the next week or so. And so we'll have an answer on if they'll let us delay that parking lot by an additional year, which means we wouldn't have to complete it until July 1st of 2024.
It still would come out of our anticipated funds since this runs through basically 2023. Anything you want to add, Jamie?
No, if you want to go to the last slide. Again. So I want to make sure, I think we do have the parking lot on there.
Okay, council, so the discussion being, how much internal funds do you want to use? How much do you want to bond for? What other options do you see? So let's start with Councilmember Swanson. Since he
I want to go
is-
last tonight.
Okay, you want to go last?
No,
Since you're a
I think
finance guy.
the first question that I have, no, I'm just. Council, I think in my head, we need to look at the kick the can down the road items, the deferred items. Are there any of those that we feel should not be deferred? And if that is the case, that changes the financial picture, right? If there's an item or two or 10 or can't be 10, there's only 4 of them there. But if there's any items on there that council feels that we should not defer, knowing that we're just going to, we're going to pay for it at some point, right? Then that changes the picture on available funds, what we may or may not need to bond for. So for me, I think that's a logical place to start the conversation is, are there any items that you feel strongly about that should not be deferred?
Yeah, I don't think we can defer the parks anymore. I mean, the others, I think we could live with if we could get an extension from ramp on those. But I just don't think we can continue to kick things down the road in our parks. I think,
You're talking Lowman View Park?
yeah, I think Loma View is what, 28 years? Which one's 28 years old, Tim? Loma View's 28 years. And we need to get on that rotation schedule. As you know, I was one that kind of proposed the other 2 ramp things. Those are nice, but our priority is public safety. But I would have a hard time deferring the Loma View Park again. That's been kicked out.
So if we keep Lowman View, then we would be doing Wadman and Lowman View this year.
Loma View next year.
Lowman View next year.
Yeah.
So Wadman this year and Lowman View the
Yeah.
following. Okay.
Can I clarify that, Mayor? Are you talking about 22 or 23?
23.
So you would want to do Loman View in 23 and Wadman in 24?
I think Wadman's the first one we need to do. It doesn't have any equipment there now, right?
So that would be in 23
23.
This
probably
coming
next
year.
one, 24.
and then Lowman View into 24.
Mhm.
Would that be the deferral? Is that what you're saying? Defer that one to 24?
Yep.
I don't want to do that. If I'm gonna kick it, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn.
You were actually speaking out of turn now that you mentioned it. Now that you mentioned it.
Phil still has the floor.
You know, it is functional. Hopefully we can get another year out of it. But I think we'd have to make sure council extra. That wasn't a deferral on a deferral on a deferral, because we have a history sometimes of doing that. And I know it's difficult, but you know, the thing I think we've got to remember as we look at these deferrals is that cash on hand does not include the $1 million for the Patriot Point Park.
Right.
And I don't know, John, what our agreement is. We have to start that. How long after we get the funds, or we don't have a lot of options on that, I don't believe.
But that's correct, Mayor. We would, as soon as the funds are available from the feds, we would have, I believe, 12 months to start the project and then complete it in a normal time frame.
And that could come upon us actually next year. So in essence, we'd be doing 3 parks in 1 year.
Can I add to that?
Always, go ahead.
Do we know where we are on the park that's supposed to go in by the Public Works? The old Public Works site?
Oh, the,
I want to say Shaw.
Shaw
but I
Century.
Shaw Century Farms Park.
Yeah.
Just Century Farms.
Century Farms, yeah, we took the shot.
That's not.
You're right.
on this one.
Right, are those funds included in here?
Nope.
Nope. And so that's how much?
That's a great question. It depends on how much we want to spend on the park.
We have to do that by 2025. What was the,
I believe it was December of 2024, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so it'd be in our,
in our
24
24 budget,
budget.
one more item in our 24 budget.
yeah, we do have some commitments out there.
So council, your thoughts on deferred items?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Councilmember Exton.
All right, when I'm looking at the amounts too, and as John said, if we can defer this parking lot at the senior center, that's $300,000, and then we don't have to defer the parks again. Because that's just kind of came out.
We
So-
really can't, because it's either in this year or next year.
Mhm.
So it's already taken out of here. So deferring it from this year to next year
Okay,
doesn't help us. Because we've got to have it done by John saying July 1st of 2024. So that would be in the 23.
the 23
So
budget.
and she's already
Okay.
included that in the estimated. So deferring that doesn't really, just to clarify, doesn't really help us on deferring these other things.
Hmm. Okay, so is this, I mean, to me, we're gonna have to increase the bond amount as much as it's just like, but I mean, we've got like these huge amounts here adding to it. I mean, because we have total available, the 15,650, we were trying to get to 14. So if we add the other 100 and, the amount that we added, what is it, bond? We have the first one at 6.7, adding another 1.5.
It gives us the 15,560.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the 14, the 60, the 100, and the 300. That gets us down to the 1,190,000, which does not include the $1 million for Patriot Point.
Okay.
So really, we're talking about uncommitted funds of $190,000 with a $1.5 million bond increase. This may be heresy, and you may find me dead somewhere along the road, but maybe it's time to start considering the bond for parks.
Thank you.
But maybe that's a separate issue to be addressed, because they have been deferred.
Mhm.
We've committed to Patriot Point, we've committed to Century Farms. We know we've got no equipment at Wadman. We know we got 28. We know we've got a park, 30 acres, that realistically is probably, some point in time we have to look at that and say, really, what's the potential there? But I guess it's dependent on how bad citizens want to, have the type of parks that they continually ask for, right?
Mhm.
So, even borrowing $1.5 million, we've got $190,000 really uncommitted.
If I can take the floor back.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Alrighty. So I'm just gonna wax philosophical here for a minute, because
Remember, Phil has to leave at 8, so you have to
yes,
stay
I
on point,
know,
right?
I will stay on point,
Okay.
but as I've just been mulling this over and mulling this over and mulling this over, and I just think about, the parks were well funded when I was growing up. You know, it's just, and property taxes kept up there. Somehow we got behind, I think, on property taxes, not even keeping up with public safety's operating budget. And so it's kind of, it's painful, but we kind of need to catch that up so that then as people move in, we have more funds available from our sales tax and from those that are now contributing the sales tax as well, to actually build the parks. Another thing is these are long-term assets. You know, this is not debt as we kind of understand it. We're not borrowing for payroll. You know, we're not going, you know, into debt. We are building long-term things. Is this actually kind of can help us predict more of the budget when we have, you know, it's like, okay, we borrow something right now, we've got interest rates, even though they're creeping up a little bit, are not anywhere near close to inflation. So, you know, if we can get those projects done, then they actually, the residents can enjoy them. You know, and I think of that line from It's a Wonderful Life. It's like, what are we waiting for? We're waiting for their kids to grow up and leave. And, you know, it's like, you know, sometimes we just have to invest. What do we value? You know, we value having places for families to congregate. We value public safety. You know, I was even imagining in my little mind about, you know, having an adequate police force that has a park to go to that can go hang out and play a pickup game of basketball with kids. You know, it's like just having that kind of work together. It's like we want to take out the bad, bring in the good. We got to do both, or, you know, the police force can't keep up with all the bad. You know, it's like nature abhors a vacuum. We got to have some good in there too. So it makes me really nervous to just keep saying, parks are a luxury, and I just don't think they are. I think they're a part of community, and some of the, you know, the plans that we have are important. And we're, you know, to be smart about it, to get a project going, plan it out, figure out what resources we need, doing it, you know, but that's how I stand.
And let me just clarify, you know, I think Phil knows this. I hate debt. But let me just ask a question, Jamie. On the budget for next year, does that include the 7% property tax increase, or does it include holding the rate steady and capturing the appreciation? Do you remember exactly?
So right now it's the 7%, and the 305,000 is what's in question. That would get us to the 20%.
So that's a decision the council obviously will have to make as we look at the budget items. So,
Mayor.
Councilman Swanson.
So Councilmember Ekstrom I'm just kind of keeping a tally here of the 4 deferred items. What would you not defer?
I wouldn't defer any of them.
So you'd keep all 4 of
I'd
them?
keep all 4 of them. They've, you know, Lowman View Park is in need. We've got such interest in those trailheads. I mean, they're getting used more and more and more. If we don't improve them, they get broken down. You know, if we really want to have the Barker Park audio and theatrical, if we're going to actually use that thing, we've got to finish it. And the community pond, we're still waiting on the federal government. I mean, I'm still whatever we're going to get.
Okay.
But, you know, we've got to make it balance. But these are, again, predictions as best we can. Sometimes projects don't get started that we budgeted for. So I'm leaning toward making it happen through bonding and through tax increase in the property to make the numbers work, to keep them in.
Councilmember, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, just so we're on the same page here, we're talking about there's 260, 335, over 400,000. We're talking about an additional 1.4 million dollars there. I would just remind us too, and we do have, the general fund has already lent the parks fund. What's the negative balance in there now?
Oh, for the impact fee?
impact fee negative?
Right now is 1.8.
And does that include the 350 that's coming out?
It's partial, that's as of April.
So 1.8 million shortage in impact fees. And it's not like we can increase the impact fees because we're getting a study done, and theoretically, I mean, it could be reduced on the impact fees. We know that I think Councilmember Daup has reported to us building permits were at about half,
40%.
40%, which is where a lot of those impact fees come from. And I guess, you know, the thing I don't want to do is confuse, in essence, bonding for parks. If we need to, that should be a separate issue than bonding for the public safety building. But you've expressed your opinion, Councilmember Swanson. He asked to be heard. Do you still want to be heard, Councilmember Swanson?
I just want to move down the line with each council member and see what of those 4 items they would keep.
Okay, let's go with Councilmember Daup next.
I feel like we need to keep the majority of them, even the items that are sitting in the deferred section. I just feel like they are, if we don't do them now, it will continue to be kicked down the road. And it's always going to be difficult to pay for them, no matter what. Every year, we're going to run into the question of how do we pay for all of this? And so, I mean, my first instinct is that we try to move forward. I mean, of course, the parking lot, that could be a question if we save that, but even with it, I think we just need to consider trying to get it all done.
So of the 4 that are marked deferral,
I mean, I'll keep it all.
Let me just clarify, the 300,000 is not going to be saved. It's either company, you know, it's gonna have to be done by.
Yeah,
eventually.
Of
we gotta
2024.
not think of
So,
that as a saving.
Yep.
yeah,
So that's just kind of the way that I'm seeing it. I went over to Lowman View Park a while ago with my family for softball practice, and I was able to go through the set that they have there, and it's pretty rough. I mean, I think it could last longer if we really needed to, but I worry about continuing to push these things further and further down.
Councilmember Severing.
So I'm just thinking that my initial thought is community pond is not really, we really don't have an option there. I agree with Councilwoman Ekstrom on we need to get the amphitheater functioning. Bowman View Park, I think Tiffany is wise. We need to make sure that we're on the rotation properly. If I were to say that there was one that is not a big concern, and that to me, that would be the trailhead improvement. But it's never been a necessity. It was just something that was something nice. And I don't think that we're gonna have, I don't know if there's been any complaints that we've only used portable toilets there. So I would say that Lowman View Park, Barker Park, and the community pond are absolute necessity. I could be convinced that the trailhead is important, but so I'm 3 out of 4.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilmember Swanson?
No more questions. Can I just address one question that Councilmember Ekstrom asked? And that was, how did we get behind? Mayor Berube and I had a great conversation as he pulled up his own tax history on the home that he's now living in. And we did some detailed analysis about that. Mayor, do you mind if I,
Go ahead.
since it's public information, but so if you go back to 1990, Mayor Berube's home paid $310.55 in property taxes in 1990. Now, mind you, that was pre-fire district split off, right? So public safety, fire, everything that we provide now, including fire and those emergency services were included in that $310.55. In this latest year, Mayor Berube home paid, you notice how I say the home paid, right? Yeah, and inanimate objects paid. Where did that go? The total, it paid $314.77 to North Ogden, $276.62 to Northview Fire, for a total of $591.39. Now, if we take the CPI inflation index and we apply that to $1990, so that we understand what we have gained or lost in purchasing power, right? If we're looking at just absolute raw dollars, then we're looking at a substantial increase. However, if we apply the inflation index, that $310 in 1990 takes $704, almost $705 in 2021 to have the same purchasing power. So in order to have the purchasing power that Mayor Berube's home paid and provided the city from a taxation standpoint in 1990 today, North Ogden City and Northview Fire together would have to have a combined tax raise of almost $14 between the two of them. Pretty darn substantial increase, right? That would be 30+% each. That's how we got behind, I believe, is that over the decades, we have been looking at absolute dollars versus purchasing power and in those inflation related dollars. I give you those numbers just to color and inform you so that you have an idea of if we're providing with $591 today, what it took $704 to provide in 1990 in purchasing power dollars. And that's how we're behind. That's why we're behind.
And just, that was a great analysis that Councilmember Swanson did. I would just say that we're committing quite a large tax increase to make this happen if we want to do the additional bonding. I'm not adverse to including those deferred items, but I would say we bond separately for those. That we go out to bond, we determine what we need for parks, and we do a separate bond, because in essence, what we're doing is somewhat technically including it in the public safety bonding process, which the bond requires us to use all that money for the public safety situation. So my suggestion would be that if you want to include those, that we get a list of everything, because there's more than this, frankly, if you really want to look at it, and we issue a separate bond if that's what you want to do, include these things. Councilmember Swanson?
I agree with Councilman Severing on keeping the 3 and deferring the trailhead. If we were going to defer anything, I'd love to see that trailhead, but with a nice bathroom, I think it's going to happen sooner than later. But if we had to defer something, that would be the one. As far as the public safety building goes and looking at the capital projects, I am favoring doing an additional bond of borrowing additional monies of up to $3 million. My concern is that if we start dipping in heavily into the funds that we already, I'm convinced that there's going to be further increases down the road that we're not seeing the end of it yet. And if we, heavily dip into the funds that we have now, then what are we going to do?
And that really only gives us $1 million.
Right, it still cuts
Because
us.
you're at 190,000 really. So it gives you another, we'd have $1,690,000. sitting in the capital projects fund if everything went well, if we borrow 3 million additional.
I honestly wouldn't have a problem going to the full 3.75. Just to know that we had the funds there to cover any issues that come, and we're protecting the other funds that we desperately need for other things. That
would probably result, we don't have it, but fairly massive tax increase, property tax increase. But once again, I would suggest that the issues we look at now are for the public safety building, and we bond separately for park issues.
Mayor. Oh, please, Charlotte.
Oh, no, I was just, somehow that doesn't sit right with me, because we've been saving. So this is the cash on hand that we've had that have been in the capital improvements. This is kind of feeling like, just to put it a little personal, my mom scripted, saved. And my dad wanted to buy a house, took all the money that she had saved, did what he wanted with it. Right. And that's a little what it feels like here. It's like, okay, we've saved and saved and saved, but we need to do this. Well, it should have, the bond still is for the public safety building, but then we're not depleting what we've already saved that really should have gone to all these other projects. So it's like, well, we're taking less out of the fund, but it's more of the mortgage for the public safety building is still the public safety building. And I think Phil is right. Let's bond for the amount that we need. Hopefully we don't have to use it all. That's right. I kind of forgotten about that. It's like we only have to take what we actually need, and we just have to, and then this is a plan too. It's like, well, we try to plan as best we can. And, I don't know about your plans, but I like most of them just go through. But we try, it's like this is the best estimate we can get. But that's how I
million,
Oh.
yeah, that 1,690,000 was talking about, we take all those out, takes you back down to 1 million. But I would take exception. I think the city has saved money, and I think it has spent it on parks. This money should have been saved a long time ago for this public safety building. This was something that, looking ahead with the growth in this city, this money should have been saved primarily for public safety. I mean, that's just a fact, and you can look in the rearview mirror all you want, but you have to look going forward. So I guess what I'm saying, Councilmember Ekstrom, is I disagree with your analysis.
Okay.
Because the city has not only saved money, and I'm not against parks. I'm saying we ought to bond to get what our parks need, because I think this is a skimpy, if we want to get the parks where they want to be, then we need to find out exactly what that is and take care of it once and for all. But the city has saved money, that has spent money on the parks. It's spent a substantial amount of money on the Patriot Point Park. I think 500,000 was it, Phil, to put the pipe in. We spent a couple million, I think, at the amphitheater, and we've advanced $1.8 million. So it's not like parks have been ignored, but I would say this money should have been saved and is saved for the number one priority in the city. And if the council wants to do that, I'm fine, but I think it ought to be bonded for, and it ought to fix the parks to where it ought to be. I mean, it may include a bond for Barker Park.
That's what I think. But
So to me, that's just my take, but the council has the decision in that regard.
so I think it's going back
I
to
just want to
also-
keep tonight's discussion on point, and the task at hand is public safety building, right? Mayor, I can't thank you enough for broaching a touchy subject, right? Bonding for anything in our community and
How
most
much I hate that.
northern Utah communities is a touchy subject, and I appreciate the fact that you were willing to broach that. And I agree with you. But tonight we have to solve this public safety building piece. And that's it's easy for us to get off on all these other things that have great importance, but we have until the end of June to decide if we're going to borrow more, how much more are we going to borrow? I've expressed my opinion. I think we borrow close to, if not the max that we can. And then we approach the other parks issue separately. I think we do it soon, very soon. I'll just say this so that it's out in the public. I think that would be a general obligation bond that the public votes on. And that can get us really sidetracked again. But I'd like to hear from the other council members on how much they think we ought to, how much additional we ought to borrow.
And may I say just one thing before we move on?
Of course you can, you're the mayor.
Oh, good. I don't think we can defer Wadman Park. I do think we need to put that in this year is to determine how much to bond for.
Loma View,
Wadman.
Wadman, yes, Wadman, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's go, Councilmember Dowpass. And Janie, when this decision's, this is a recommendation tonight. Council will vote on in a subsequent meeting. But I'd also like to know what the increase in property taxes would be to fund the 3 million or 3.7 million or whatever the council decides. So Councilmember Dowpass, where are you leaning?
Well, I think it's clear that the bonding amount is more than we had wanted to for the last, I didn't envision that prices would go up in the way that they have. I don't think anyone did. So I kind of see us in that 3 million additional bonding. So the 6.7 plus 3 million, potentially up to the full amount. My only hesitation if we don't go the full amount is if we get in a pickle and prices keep going up, then we have to, can we go back? And it sounds like we have to have that decision by the end of June.
Yeah.
And so my hesitation about not bonding for the full 10.5 is that we could very likely have increases continue, and we're going to wish that we had that additional $750,000. So I'm in that 3 million to 3.7 million range.
And just a reminder, any unused funds, because this goes into basically a fund for the public safety, because we have to prove its use, I believe. We can pay back any unused funds to the lowest interest rate, which is the most current, but the payment basically stays the same. We just pay the bond off earlier, so you can pay back unused funds, but it doesn't affect the payment. So with borrowing of 3.75 million, our payment would go to $675,000 approximately on an annual basis. Okay, let's go to you, Councilmember Severin. What's your recommendation?
I'm going to be very simple. I agree with what Councilman Dowpass is recommending.
Okay. Councilmember Ekstrom.
Yep. Let's get as much as we, let's bond for what we can. I think, especially what we can put in what we've already got approved. So if we don't use it, that would be preferable, but if we need to, then it's there. And go forward and pray that prices stabilize or go down a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Councilmember Swanson.
I would just add for any who are listening, any of the public who are concerned that may have a question in the back of their mind. These additional funds are not to add any fancy dancy things that weren't already in the building. We're not going back and, adding, deluxe surround showers and,
Marble halls.
marble locker rooms and, things like that. This is just the increase in materials. We don't know fully what the increase in materials are, and that's part of the problem. But just the increase in cost, construction labor costs right now is already at 30%. It's huge.
Thanks for that reminder, since I'm building a house. I appreciate that.
Well, but see, you're doing the marble surround showers
I know.
and all those things.
But just remember too, we do have 650,000 built in, but the other thing in making a decision is, getting materials ordered, because then we can lock in
Today's prices.
today's price. I think the labor portion is somewhat locked in, is my recollection. It's the materials. So who knows where those will go. All right, I think we've made a decision. If I understand it, the council is recommending that we bond up to the total 10.5 million. We'll do some further analysis on that. And see what it's going to take to make that happen and what it does. Okay. All right, John, does that give you and Jamie some direction?
Yes, we will bring back the appropriate information for the council for a future approval.
Okay, I think the discussion is it 3 million or 3,750,000? So maybe the analysis could be done on that. So, okay. Thank you, council, for your input there. These are tough decisions. As you know, I'm sensitive to debt. I'm a debt hater. I'm concerned about the burden it does place on some of our older folks, but nothing's free in the world, right? And if you want it, you got to pay for it. I fully understand that. It's unfortunate, you know, what's happened in the construction business, but it's something we don't have control over. We'll move on now to item number 6, which are public comments. So anyone that would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, state your name. If you're a resident of North Ogden, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And Susan, if you would watch for those online.
Okay, Kevin Burns, and I am a resident of North Ogden. Painful process. I remember having a conversation in 2019 with a citizen and talking about having to build a new public safety building. And this individual, I'll let him remain nameless, but we had an interesting conversation. And I told him I believe we need a new police station and new public safety building, and it's going to be somewhere between $15 and $18 million, based on my limited knowledge. And here we are. So not a bad shot in the dark. And public safety, as we stated, #1 priority. So that's great, very important. But I'm going to talk. I'm actually talking about something that I didn't think I was going to talk about, and that's the park piece of it. I truly believe that good, usable, safe parks are a benefit to public safety. They work hand in hand. I think there's plenty of evidence out there to back that up. There was a couple of comments made about the trailhead improvements. And as that trailhead has been used over the last few years and changed, and COVID changed a lot for us and a lot of use. And having a little bit of background, I sat in on the ramp, meetings when we talk about the ramp funds that would go to that trailhead. There is some public safety features there, right? And then so you talk about some cameras and some lighting and some parking and those types of things. So please don't dismiss it as it's not a public safety thing and just it's an additional cool trailhead, because there's a lot of public safety issues that go along with that to help decrease maybe some vehicle burglaries and thefts and those types of things. I appreciate your work you've done on it. I drive and check on a number of parks because of my involvement with RAMP and Birch Creek and the Smith Family Park. I'm quite envious, and I'd really like to have a cool park to take grandkids to without driving to South Ogden or far west. And so I know that I know it's possible, and with some creativity and some planning, starting those ramp plans early and being involved in those types of things, real benefit. But really it comes back to benefiting our public safety and keeping our community safe. And I know that having good parks is good for cops. They may not go to the park and play, but they know where to find their bandits when they're looking for them. So, and hopefully maybe they don't become bandits. So thank you, appreciate your work, tough decisions. And remember, anybody can do it when it's easy. y'all are getting paid to do it when it's tough. So, thanks.
Obviously, you don't understand the council's pay, Mr. Burns. Well, thank you for your comments there. And that's my point, is why I would like to address the park situation separately. Because, you know, in essence, this is really kind of band-aiding ultimately what we need to decide on, what kind of parks we need in the city and where we need them. There's been a lot of discussion about planning for the future. And just as a reminder, that's one of the things the council tried to do in the excess revenues over expenditures, is to have a subcategory for parks and 20% of that, so we could start building and saving for those. So, okay, thank you.
Did I have any of my 5 minutes left? Because I.
You have 16 seconds.
Okay, I did want to say that I appreciated Councilman Swanson's analysis of the 30 years that it took to get here with using your property tax notices. It took us 30 years to get here. It might take us more than 1 year to correct that and turn that around. And so, you know, don't be too anxious or, you know, have a plan. It might take us more than 1 year to correct that 30-year action. So thank you.
As long as we don't break our foot kicking things down the road. All right, do we have anyone online that would like to comment, Susan?
Yes, Susan Kilborn.
Okay, let's hear from Susan Kilborn.
Hi there, City Council. Hope you guys had a good Memorial Day, and how fortunate we are that we got a little bit of well-needed rain. Our grass is turning from brown to green. I wanted to ask you all, we are coming up quickly on the 4th of July and Pioneer Days, and wondering if the city is going to put anything out there concerning the use of fireworks, where they will be allowed, if they're going to be allowed. Will the city be lighting off fireworks? I have major concerns about that. As you, well, city council members know, I live up here, up the hill towards Ben Lomond, and it's just like crazy up here. And I'm very, very concerned about that. I don't think a lot of people have extra fire insurance coverage. So that's one question I have for the city council. And also, Mr. Mayor, I would like to meet with you, because I have all kinds of ideas swirling in my head about leveraging resources that we already have in our city that I don't see are being used. So I just want to throw that at you, and appreciate everything you guys do. You know, I love you. That's it.
Thanks, Susan. More than happy to meet with you as long as you're buying lunch.
We're making lunch. She's a
No,
great cook.
I know. So just get with Susan and she'll set a time for us to meet. Our fire marshal's not with us tonight. We have submitted a map where fireworks can't be lit. That could be changed based upon moisture, I guess, we received in June. We do have Tiffany with us tonight, but I believe that we're trying to seek a place to shoot the fireworks off, because every place we've inquired has come back with a no at this point in time. So we will continue to search. It is our intention to have a fireworks show. We just have to find a suitable location that's approved by the fire marshal and the landowner. So is that a good summary? All right. So that's where we're at. Obviously, we will be very sensitive to safety as we look at doing that, and we'll rely a lot on the fire marshal, who's once again enjoying some time with his family. Yes. Anyone else?
Susan Kilborn would like to speak again.
Okay, I think she has 16 seconds remaining. Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, so much for me paying for lunch, but how about your new property that you're building your new house on?
It's very small piece of property.
Oh, okay. Well, just had to get that chide in there.
All right.
Okay, you guys all go home and be safe tonight.
We will do that. Any others? Susan Nance that would like to comment this evening? All right. Anyone else here? Department heads? Okay. We're now going to item 7, which are comments by the council, the mayor, and any staff comments. Mayor does have some comments this evening he'd like to make, but we'll start first with staff. Any comments? What a content group. All right, no comments from staff. Council. John has a sore throat, so he's trying to maintain his sore throatness. Any comments from the council? All right, since we have a few minutes before Councilmember Swanson has to leave, I would like to address a couple of things, if I may. Some a little sensitive, some not so sensitive. I've been kind of thinking about how we can best respond to our citizens while not driving our department heads crazy. And I would like to propose, as you know, many of us get emails and text messages from citizens, which we're grateful for. I'm wondering if it wouldn't be good to, because John doesn't get copied on a lot of those, to respond to the citizens saying we will forward this information to our city manager, who will then discuss the potential solution with the department head. And then once that is taken care of, the department head could get back to their liaison and tell them it's been resolved.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Could it possibly the CCMM include John? Could we just,
Well,
so that he could,
it can, but then we get the same thing, right? We're trying to respond to what will take place, and we don't know if that's really going to take place because we don't know the solution as well as the department head would know the solution. And I'm just as guilty as anyone, so I'm preaching to myself because we really want to respond to the citizens. We want to get the opportunity in front of the responsible department head who knows how to deal with it. And we have the coordination with John. Because we all, I think, want to serve the citizens as best we can. And so we try to respond and try to solve the solution, come up with a solution. And I think the best place for that solution to come up with is the department head. So just a thought I had, but once again, we would respond to the citizen by saying we have forwarded this to our city manager, who will work with the department head. Then it's the department head's responsibility to get with that citizen, get the situation resolved, report back to the, there's in staff meeting, I'm sure it'll be discussed, but then John would get back to the responsible individual. If it was a public works issue, he would get back to you to make sure that you've got the follow-up. Then if you'd like to check with the citizen, you could just say, is this a satisfactory solution?
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
Mayor?
I like it.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so just for clarification, if there is a public works question that comes either by text or email, then Councilwoman Charlotte sends it to John, not me, not any other of us.
Well, that puts the responsibility on each council member to make sure they're looking at, it wouldn't be out of order, I think, to forward it to John so he does know, or include it as council member Ekstrom suggested. Last thing we want to do is for council not to know, well, who's responsible. So it might be good for that council member to CC other council members showing that it has been forwarded to John.
Okay, so a question, like we just had this one asking about the weeds, right? And that, so what property is that? Is that a public works section that the city owns? And that's where I get confused, I'm like, the one that we just had.
In
that we
between, yeah.
respond to.
That I responded to, I forwarded that to John, so he would know,
He knows.
right? Because we don't know.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's.
So
my
that's why I
question.
said this email has been forwarded to Mr. Call, our city manager, and he will get the responsible department head involved in solving the problem.
Excellent.
Because we
Okay.
don't know, right? I was thinking that might be public works,
That was my
you know,
question.
but I didn't know. It was between parks and public
I was
works.
grateful you said.
And so I flipped a coin and came up with public works. But John will know for sure how to solve that problem in conjunction with the department head. Okay. All right. Here is maybe the more sensitive issue, council. And look, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, right? But I think it's really important from my perspective that we make sure we're not making commitments without involvement. Well, we shouldn't be really making any commitments, but we need to make sure department heads are involved. The respective department head is involved from the beginning on situations that need their input. And I think that's really important. I would hope in this meeting that each of us who take our responsibilities seriously will then report back on what's going on, so the council fully knows before we get too far down the road. So my plea is that if there's a question, always take the most conservative approach, which is to have the department head involved early on. Once again, I know intentions are good. There's a lot of things that we want to see happen in the city, but I'm just telling you, in my short term as mayor, I've learned that the department heads know a heck of a lot more about what's going on and how to solve that than probably we ever will know. Now, that doesn't mean we're pushing away our responsibilities as council members. The buck does stop here. And that's why I think it's important that you as council members, I kind of get some insight when I used to attend the staff meetings on what's going on in the city. Unfortunately, we don't have that. So I think this is put some additional responsibility on reporting, how we have reports, and don't necessarily wait for your turn if you need help. But let's make sure we get that involvement. Sensitive issue number 2. We're going to all make mistakes, right? I believe it's the mayor's responsibility to correct those mistakes within this council. I don't believe it's individual council members' responsibility. You know my number. If you've got a concern, you can call me. And you can be assured that I take my job seriously and I will address that situation with improving council communication and how we can do our jobs better. I've been really happy. I know there was a lot of fear when the mayor got elected that there'd be a lot of contention in the council. I've been very pleased that we've worked together very well. I look forward to that continuing, but that becomes more difficult if we personalize things. So I'm going to ask that as your mayor, if you have concerns, that you get with me and you have my commitment that I will address those concerns. Whether it's with the council, if it's a staff member you have a concern with, John is the person that would handle that. He knows I'm here to help him. to support him in those decisions, but he is the chief operating officer of the city. The other thing I would ask, and this is, I know this is really difficult because we're all so passionate about, you know, helping the city be a great place to live. I know we're all very sensitive to our department heads, and I think there's, I don't know, if it's Confucius or whoever said this, but it's really hard to serve two masters, for you hate the one and love the other. And I would just ask that each of us kind of stay in our lanes. If you have suggestions that would help a council member with their assignment, pick up the phone and call them. We get along all pretty well. So if you see something that can improve, you know, that relationship, you know, give them a suggestion, never hurts. We're all here to help everybody improve and get better. Okay, that's my soapbox for tonight. What are your thoughts? Give me some feedback. Quiet group. Did I offend you all or just a couple?
No, great points.
Excellent. Okay. Can we give that a shot? Try that?
Yeah.
And see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll go to plan B.
We just try stuff.
Mhm. But hopefully we thought out the good tries. All right. Perfect. With that then, I think we have item number 8, which may be the most important thing remaining on the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Council Member Ekstrom to adjourn this meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Have a good evening and enjoy the rest